It's fun.
Man. So before the brief interruption, you're discussing just a kind of different environ. It's interesting to see the different environs from people, different, bands and or members of a band and stuff like that. Yeah, no, it's a really surreal world now. How was your? I'm sorry. Was it a boy or girl? Your boy or girl? Was it? Sorry.
It's a girl. Her name is
Yeah.
Ava. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. How is she dealing with that? Like just strictly online?
Well, she goes to Montessori,
Yeah.
and she goes to a very small school, and so this all started in January of last year. By around March, I believe, they opened the school. There was only 5 students in the class, and they took very, very good precautions. And everyone wears masks all day, and kids don't seem to mind it. Um, I was pushing her in the swing the other day, and she said something like, "Papa, I'm tired of this whole COVID thing. It's messing up with all my stuff."
Mm.
So I think she's a little lonely
Mm.
for her friends and for social interaction other than with her parents and immediate family.
Mm.
But she's handled it very well, and she's been happy as she has been normally. Luckily, we have it better than most. There's a little bit of I was in New York for 20 years, and just fairly recently moved to Atlanta, and I cannot imagine being in New York City under these circumstances.
Mm.
I think that would be just it might break me down a little bit. So we're lucky in that respect that we are near our families and we're able to see them on a regular basis. We're in a little bubble together, and um, so we're lucky. Work has not been interrupted and whatnot. But a lot of my friends and musicians and crew people in particular, um, the crews for say the National, I don't know, they employ maybe 150 people total or something, and these guys, women, don't have any real place to go. Um, their chosen profession has completely disappeared. So I feel that pain a lot, and I wake up feeling really grateful every day that, while it's been very anxious time and difficult, we've had it better than most. We have a lot of gratitude for that.
Mm.
How
Yeah.
about you?
Oh yeah. Well, I have family basically kind of spread out. I'm initially from originally from Boston, Mass, and I kind of picked up and moved to Brooklyn in late 2016. But it's kind of tough because my sister transplanted to Nashville a couple of years ago with she brought with her my nephew, now almost 5. In May he'll be 5, and she just had a baby girl in August. So I haven't had a chance to see them, and that's tough. And even just interactions like that, though, over like say Zoom or like Amazon, like kind of Echo, you still don't get the real human connection. But it's better than nothing. But I actually though I found myself outside the city. I'm in Beacon, New York. If you know it or you're familiar.
Yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with it. You're in Brooklyn now, and then
I
kind
was
of
in Brooklyn, and then I found myself like 2 hours outside the city, like an hour and a half. It's Beacon, New York.
sounds like a good choice to me right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like you said, like the supporting crew of live performance. There's no that
In
dress. that drastically changed my project and what I was doing, covering bands and stuff too. But
Yeah, I can imagine it's been kind of very difficult for you, and I've seen a lot of small and big acts kind of. Your sister moved down to Nashville, so Robin Hitchcock and Emma Swift have really tried very, very hard and have been striving to continue to make music and present music, and generate income for themselves by providing actual interesting content on a consistent basis. So I support them through Patreon.
mm,
And Nick Cave, the Bad Seeds, recently put out a raffle for paraphernalia of the band that would go in support of the crew specifically.
mm,
And I have friends who own or manage bars in New York and restaurants, and that demographic, restaurateurs, bar owners, people in bands, crews, anyone in the arts. Atlanta's a big film town, and I have friends that are, involved heavily with that, and that's been hit really hard as well.
mm.
So not to focus on the artist and say that it's not hard on anyone else, because of course it is very much so. But those, professions are close to me, and that's what I relate to the most, and see where the hardships have really hit.
Yeah. I guess then so where did your interest in arts and music begin? I mean, what's your story, man? Like, I guess how did you get 30 plus years of doing super creative work in music and in photography and graphic design as well.
Well, we had a piano when I was 4 years old in the
Hmm.
house, and I remember picking out Beethoven's 14th Sonata by ear, just the first few bars, around the age of 4 or 5. Um, and then my mom got me a little radio that I would stay up at night, past midnight under the covers listening to, and I remember hearing my first Beatles song on that radio, and just being entranced by it, just any kind of music really. But when I heard the Beatles, like many millions of people who have felt this way, realized, wow, this is neat stuff. Um, my parents, my father was or is a classical music kind of savant. He introduced me to a lot of that. I played the violin for 6 years. Um, Sang in the Atlanta Boy Choir. Went to Italy with them. Sang for the Pope when I was 11.
Oh.
And then I discovered girls and the Trap Kit,
Yeah.
and all that was over.
Yeah.
Um, and it was, drums ever since. And only recently, in the last, say, 5 years, but most productively in the last 3 years, have I been doing my own songwriting, and really taking a crash course in engineering and producing, mixing, mastering, all the elements that go into making a recording. And I have recently had the privilege to be able to do that semi full time. I split my time with uh, raising my daughter and maintaining a respectable household, and I spend probably 4 to 8 hours in the studio a day in some fashion or another, whether that's practicing the drums or mixing a track, or if I have nothing to do, reading some textbooks and figuring out just how compression works, man, because it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Even understanding it now, it's still a mystery. So yeah, that's part of it. My parents saw me go through a hard time playing in a very popular band in the Southeast in the 90s who got signed to Polygram Records. And of course, it's a very old story. The rhythm section got the boot. And that was difficult. And my parents one day gave me this, what do you call it, like a brochure for the Portfolio Center in Atlanta, graphic design school. They said, I think maybe you ought to try that. So I did, and went through that 2-year program, very intensive. And then 2 months later, moved to New York, and for 20 years did graphic design as my form of income, and played in a bunch of different bands. One in particular that was consistent over about 18 years, but I had a lot of opportunity to play with a lot of different people up there, which is what I miss most. You know,
Yeah.
20-year relationships that are based on music. You know, when you're 30, it's easy to make friends and to make connections. You know, when you're 50 and you're in a new town, it's a lot harder, right? It's a lot harder. And it takes, you know, what, I'm going to be 70 before I get another 20-year relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
You know? So I miss that. And so the studio's been a real help in my mental health and keeping me doing musical things without necessarily needing the support of other humans.
Yeah. Do you find it kind of I've spoken to numerous musicians as well and producers, and they're kind of akin to this, kind of used to just being locked into the studio, anyways, comparatively, So it's like they're kind of well adjusted to being isolated from
Exactly.
persons.
Yeah, I'm that kind of person a little bit. I'm a bit of a homebody, and so I have no problem spending 14 hours in front of a DAW, and not seeing anybody and just diving in. So I can see the first record we made, first and last record we made with my band, the Go Cartel in Brooklyn, really kind of stoked my re-interest in the studio, where I had the wisdom of a little bit more age and understanding of what went on in the studio, and I really got the bug. And that's when I started to study it semi-formally, I guess you would call it, and decided that I wanted to know everything there was about recording music, even if it's, digitally, tools are digital. Process is still the same. The outcome is generally the same. So yeah, that's how that's we're up to speed, or we're up to date now.
Yeah. um did you like, touching upon the national, were you friends with those guys at the beginning, or how did you link up with them and take that cover shot?
Yeah, I continue to be friends with them. Matt, when I went to New York City straight out of design school, I interviewed in 5 places. I got 3 offers, and when I went to my 6th place, it was the Putt Building in Milita. This guy opened the door, and before he opened his mouth, I was like, "This is where I'm going to work."
Yeah.
And it was Matt. He was a creative director there, and the National was not yet a thing. We became very good friends. Scott and I became very good friends. A number of us worked together, and so as as friends, I was present for a lot of the early kind of formation and um, events that took place before their first record. That image Um, Scott just we went to East Hampton one weekend with about 10 people. We rented this big house with a pool and wanted to get out of the city. And so we just had a little weekend together, and I, shot, some candid, just reportage kind of stuff. And next thing I know, the record comes out, and there's Bryan. Scott had just gotten a hold because I had posted the files for people to see, and Scott, without mention, just grabbed it and slapped it on there. And at first, I was like, well, he didn't ask me. If that's okay, dude. That's a really weird choice. um, but it's become very iconic. Obviously, it's all over the internet, more so than I think any of their other beautiful cover art that they've done. But yeah, I got lucky with that one. I'm really happy that happened, and um, I've been privileged to have their ear and their attention and their friendship throughout this whole time. I toured with them as a friend, as a photographer,
Mm.
sometimes in their tour bus, all over Europe and all over the States. As a matter of fact, I just sent Scott a little gift yesterday. He received it for being so generous and kind with me all these years.
Mm. Wow. No, it's funny. I prior to meeting my current partner, I never knew who the National were, and then I, when I moved to Brooklyn, I wasn't actually. I was kind of more on the design side as well.
Okay.
I was kind of into more UX design and tech. Kind of using.
That's what I did mostly too.
Yeah, that's where more of the.
Toward the end, that's really all I was really doing. But
Yeah.
yeah, continue. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, no, no. So I just moved, Brooklyn. Boston was getting small. I love this city, but I needed a change. And then I met some guys who just kind of lent me a camera, and I was just kind of taking a lot of street shots, and because it's a totally different world. And then my current partner, Melissa, she saw my sequence, and I used to print it out at CVS. These just the kind of sequence to see what I had in hand, and she loved my work. So she's a music publicist for years now, and she pushed my work to Paste magazine. And I started kind of doing assignments for Paste in
No,
like August 2017, and I started. That's where I've been on this journey ever since that. Um,
well, congrats on that, and you got lucky with a good partner.
oh yeah, so like, just to continue, it's like funny because I didn't know who the National were. Then Pace sent me to the Bowery Ballroom. I think they were doing like a special
Night show.
show for like Sirius XM. I think, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So at Bowery Ballroom, you can't bring in a pro camera. So the editor just gave me like a little point and shoot, and it was like sketchy images. But then, yeah, then I think I captured them in Queens as well, or Forest Hills, I believe.
Forest Hills, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But then I kind of started becoming friends with Ben and Kyle. I captured them in Boston in 2019 backstage, and those guys are great.
Those two boys are princes, man.
Yeah, no,
I
they're
love these guys.
amazing, just amazing talent regarding musically, and just all around nice guys. And
Incredibly personable.
I think you might have seen it where I spoke with those guys earlier on in the series, and then I actually coincidentally talked to Tom, Matt's brother, where Matt popped in, which was crazy. And I've actually had coffee with like Graham McIndoe, their kind of tour photographer and stuff. And I didn't know them before 2017, and then it kind of like all came together. In Boston, I was backstage after the show, and then kind of met, briefly chatted with Scott, and I think I really haven't spoken to Matt himself, like one on one, or captured him. I've captured him via live performance, but I haven't captured the twins either. But besides that, I also actually coming up this coming Monday, because I release this every 2 weeks. I talked to Kate Sable as well. I know she's done a few tracks as well, toured with them as well.
Right, right.
So she was amazing, and we're definitely slated for another conversation, because we were interrupted due to internet issues here. It was snowy, so it was like, okay. Still ended up like 40 minutes, but we're slated for another conversation because it was so much fun chatting.
They're a great band they're also personable and down to earth,
Yeah.
and real people. And Matt, um, I mean, prior to his Instagram career as pushing that side of his personality, Matt was one of the funniest people I'd ever met. He did not betray this kind of morose or solemn, sad sack guy that's in a lot of the songs. Um, he's hilarious, and he's lighthearted, and he's generous and warm. And so you go backstage, and you get a sense of it a little bit more now, even in the public performances, that these guys are all very real, and um, fame has changed because approachability is a little bit scarier.
Mm.
When you have 40 people at the 40 Watt in Athens versus 120,000 in Mexico City. But they've all held up real well, and they've worked their asses off 20 years straight. Nobody deserves it more than them, I think.
Yeah.
They've made some of the best records in the last, I'm going to stretch it to 50 years. I mean, I really do believe that some of those records people are going to be listening to 100 years from now. And that, to me, is the goal. My folks were like, well, 1 in 10,000 bands do that. And I said, okay, so 1 in 10,000 people become huge architects and discover flight and all this other stuff. So what, we shouldn't try, right?
Yeah.
But that, to me, that goal is not fame or money, which is sometimes desirable, but to me, leaving an artifact that people beyond your immediate sphere of influence connect to, and over a long period of time. Lawrence Ferlinghetti, obviously, just passed recently, and it got me to thinking about poetry when I was writing a lot of poetry in my 20s, and just realizing that someone passes. We've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of my heroes in the last 3 or 4 years pass, and realizing what a legacy they leave behind and what it really means to create art and leave it behind for everyone else to enjoy. And so in a way, you do have that immortality in a way.
Well, that's the thing too. It's with the art, comparatively, say, to design. Design is just solving a kind of communication problem generally. And arts, you really, it is an extension of yourself, but I think it's more for people. It's not art unless you can create therapeutic art and stuff, and art for yourself. But if it's not taken up by, if you don't release it to the greater world, and it's not seen, heard, experienced, it's just an idea for yourself, I guess. But I mean, yeah, I guess all artists aim for that longevity, that longevity post
And
mortem, I
very
guess,
few
right?
people get it, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, the internet's kind of an ironic um, gift because it's democratized um, music making, that and digital audio workstations and home studios, and you know anyone with some amount of talent and know-how can make a great sounding record from their bedroom.
Mm.
Julian Baker is a very good example of a 22-year-old kid who is wise beyond her years, and made this beautiful um, thing that's going to remain.
Mm.
Um, but at the same time, you have a long, long tail now. You don't have Casey Kasem on Sundays anymore. You
Yeah.
know, the Cars weren't number one. Everyone's not listening to the Cars, regardless of the demographic. Everyone's not listening to that Supertramp song or whatever it is. There's no longer a community that is global that can all come together. Now it's splintered into, it used to be 10,000 bands went out and made a record after the Velvet Underground. Now it's like 100,000 bands go out and make a record. And it's very hard to get exposure unless you're very savvy about social media, which I shun almost 100%. Never had a Facebook account in my life.
Yeah.
Um, so that kind of handcuffs me in that way. And frankly, I'm kind of lazy at self promotion. It's not something that fits well for me. Certainly not even now. Maybe earlier in my 20s, it could have become a little easier, but it's never been a thing. So audience is small, but there's a satisfaction in putting it out there, regardless of how many people are gonna hit that URL or hit that stream on Spotify. To me, the fact that it's a completed work that has been released to the wild, it's satisfying.
Hmm. Well, touching upon the longevity of, say, our current digital output, where do you like where do you see the digital work archives in 100 years? Like, what if things totally change regarding how we store data, and do you think a lot of work will be lost in the transition of you know I don't know what's next. Obviously we have a lot of cloud storage and stuff, but you know servers can go down. You could lose data like that instantaneously. So
Hopefully, someone's archiving the MPEG 2-inch tapes and masters somewhere in a safe place. I'm I have not thought about that question in that particular perspective because I'm a vinyl collector. I have over almost 1,700 records
wow.
and growing. I don't listen to digital music
Hmm.
except for when I'm in my car or walking around in New York City. My
Hmm.
earbuds, as my daughter calls them. Um, it's great for that, but when I'm at home, I'm putting on a record. I'm not listening to a playlist.
Hmm.
I'm not seeking out the best song on an album and making a little collection. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's just not how I consume music. But as to the data being lost, I I never thought about it as granularly as with music, but I have had those kind of M. Night Shyamalan kind of moments where you're like, well, what if suddenly the plug is pulled and we're brought back to 1982?
Hmm.
Um, Frankly, I would not mind that. there's a lot of conveniences and a lot of cool shit happening right now. We cannot deny it, but there is also a bit of a cancer that comes with it,
Hmm.
and it has changed our brains in some ways for the better,
Hmm.
and in some ways, I can't remember a number to save my life. Give me a string of 8, 10 numbers, I could not repeat them back to you as you were telling me.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
my brain is no longer exercising that muscle, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I guess I'm a little bit of a throwback in that way. Um, I love technology. I love the Macintosh.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the iPhone is an incredible, life-changing device. Unfortunately, it is also a harbinger of the very ugly parts
Hmm.
of what is the internet.
Yeah, it kind of touches upon like these sub communities with the internet. You can select, you know, what you want to listen to, or you choose to watch or look at, and just have these filters of, you know, uh, just say like a group with similar ideas, but nothing else, and that's where we had the, issues with the election and all that, is the kind of just funneling of just
Exactly.
ideas into just just one group, and then the other side not seeing the other side and not having that perspective and having cross dialogue, or
Well,
that
that's why I thought radio was so interesting, because I don't think that we as humans were meant to be able to talk to anyone at any time in any place.
exactly, yeah.
I don't think we were meant to know exactly what news is happening in any given place at any given minute. It's so much information, and to give every person a voice and a platform for that voice, it's democratic, but it is also, in a way, a little bit anarchistic.
Hmm.
Um, so I was trying to get to your point, which I've now let slip, but yeah, I'm not. I have very mixed feelings about the internet.
Yeah, I think a lot of artisans do too. It's I'm feeling some cognitive burnout, and just burnout from the oversaturation, or the pressure to post, and it's like I just want to do my thing, like, but to get it out there, I kind of post, but uh, luckily this has been receptive. People are really digging this series.
Absolutely, it's. I can see why for you, and I have an Instagram account. It's the only thing that I have in terms of that social media, and I flirt with leaving it all
Hmm.
the time
Yeah.
because I'm thinking, God, this thing is appealing to my worst narcissistic impulses. Um, I'm sitting around trying to communicate affection and appreciation by, making a heart light up on a screen.
Yeah.
And I get very dismayed by it. But then I have moments. I met Kevin Gilmore, who you interviewed,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
through Instagram, and we are somewhat kindred spirits and have developed what I call a fairly solid friendship, not having ever really met.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
And there's a couple of other painters that I am in regular contact with
Hmm.
on Instagram, and that gives me that little push that says, okay, I would not have had this perspective and met these people that have other perspectives and live in other places. I would not have had that opportunity. So it's a double-edged sword. I'm not saying get off my lawn, go take away the internet, but it's it's something that I grapple with all the time.
Hmm.
And in some ways you think about, some purists would say, well, you're not making any real music because it's all digital. Where's your outboard gear? You know, where did you really learn how to use these devices in whatever? And frankly, he put me into a studio and asked me to put together all the physical components and wire everything correctly. I would be probably lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people, I think, feel that way, but I don't think that. I think that's kind of bogus. Um, I think that any tool is fair game if it's going to help you make art. If it's
Mm.
going to help you make something else, that's a different story. But if it's going to help you make art and it gives you a legitimate product, if you want to call it a product,
Mm.
but, you know, the product of your labor, right? Um, then who gives a shit where, you know, what tools you used?
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, again, you got to take the good with the bad, and there's certainly a lot of good to be experiencing right now.
Well, I'm a big proponent of crossover. You know, it just I don't like to. You know, I've mixed photographic techniques with like, printmaking techniques. Cut ups, and I've been playing around with you know, some stuff like I could show you real quick. Just it's
Okay.
kind of dark, but like kind of like,
It is dark.
but I love it. Like I mean, it was authentic. It was my attempt to kind of show um, just just kind of reflect on my silence or my observations of what was going on. You
Would
know,
you mind showing that to me again?
of course, yeah. um,
Yep, I see it perfectly. Yeah, I mean, that's saying a lot. I mean, just looking at it for, 5 seconds, it's already saying a lot.
yeah. So
Um,
I took a self portrait with tape over my mouth in this room just dark, and maybe it had this overhead light, and then I cut it out. I did some cutting and scanned it back in over the original portrait or different portrait of myself, and initially then just like carved into it as well, just to have this rough kind of cut out the eyes, and then I scanned it again, and then another scan. So I kind of layered it, scanned it, and I'd love to print it on some like maybe some rice paper or something really unique paper. I'd love to see it on.
yeah, a arts paper or something that has some tooth and some dot game, kind of softened it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a lot of printing in my time,
Mm.
um, photo professional printing. Um, and it sounds like you were using a kind of a graphic design technique, which was scanning and blowing up and scanning it again and blowing it up and doing that sort of thing. I think that's great. I mean, it shows it's very much of the time, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's it was kind of denied from a traditional route of a group show. Um, it was supposed to be about the pandemic, and this was really my authentic self and how I was experiencing the pandemic, and it was kind of denied. I'm like, that's awful. But so I'm probably gonna self-produce a show with or maybe collab with an artist friend, or new artist friend who I actually interviewed, and now we're kind of friends.
Sure.
Or probably co-produce a show, anyways. So I'm like, I just like producing my own stuff, like trying to go through to traditional, gallery system or open calls. I I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like it just parallels late capitalism, and it's just like once again you just weed people out, and you're pretty subjective, and it's like that's not art. It's like I don't want to compete over art. It's all these contests now, photographic contests. It's like it doesn't do anybody good. It just does the organizations good, of course, with
Hmm.
those fees and stuff. But I don't believe that's art, man. I think one should create because you need to create, and I don't think you should limit yourself due to somebody else's perspective or taste and styles. I mean, I think that's just,
which is we're back right here to the internet. It gives you the
yeah,
opportunity to do that,
yeah,
and that's that double-edged sword again. It's a fantastic way to do that, and it should be that way.
yeah,
Um, because glad handing is, artists are not usually very good at glad handing. That's why they have agents.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Um,
sorry to just
no,
um another extension of my series, which I was doing prior to pandemic, was, I print out my photos. I had to, like, venues say, like, I had this show at Arlene's Grocery, August 2019. I printed out my stuff, portraits. I think I had one of Ben too. And then I had bands I've shot play perform, and people love it. Like, I got so many
sure.
different people together, and people had the best time. And it was like, in February, I had everything lined up last year. I was like, all right, we have the venue. It was an amazing venue. I don't know if you know it, Littlefields in Brooklyn, Gowanus area.
I know Gowanus very well, but Littlefields may have gone up within the last 3 years.
Yeah, yeah, it might be a newer venue, but it was
So,
like you could probably hold like 200 people at least sitting down. So it was a big venue, and they had a dedicated gallery space and had amazing lineup. I even had a comedian I shot. I was getting into comedy, backstage comedy and stuff, and he was going to open up, and then I had two amazing performers as well. Shipla Ray, if you're familiar, Shipla, and then Lizzie and the Makers too, both kind of local New York bands. It was just a diverse lineup, and then it was like pandemic. No, it was like had everything going well, and then of course pandemic. So this kicked off, which has been going well as well. But I love bringing people together in the experience of, say, Prince, and then music, and just having this immersive or diverse experience as well. Um,
well, I feel for you because I don't. Sometimes it's not as obvious to me how heartbreaking some of these interruptions have been for so many people. Um, Having a show, um, even to get it down to something as basic. And, we had tickets to 5 or 6 shows last year. Nick Cave at the Fox Theater,
yeah.
Magnetic Fields is this tiny place. The Ocean Blue coming back around, and feeling really proud that they were
Mm.
coming back around, and making a go of it, and probably going to be very successful doing it. And it was such a disappointment to miss those. And I can't imagine for the performers of any sort of art that anticipated a performance and then it got washed away.
Mm.
That's a heartbreaker. I mean, um, I again, that's why I feel grateful. I've had the opportunity to hold myself up and do what I need to do to live,
Mm.
to purge, and it's just so unfortunate. And I'm hoping that hopefully sooner than later, we'll be able to get back to, seeing other people's faces
Yeah.
and like hugging your friends. That's the weirdest thing to me.
Mm.
Not to be all touchy feely about it, but like that to me, it's always weird. People you've known for 20 years that you naturally go, "Hey man, what's up?"
Yeah.
And you go, "Oh wait, can't do that." It feels so strange.
That is true. Yeah. Every time I see I I kind of go up to Mass to visit my folks because I still have to check in, but
Sure.
I haven't been irresponsible. But I generally meet with my friends, old friends, and yeah, we always just meet outside, and it's like we have to have our mask on and kind of like elbow or like, but generally, yeah, you just like hug. It's like you miss those small interactions, those micro.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, when you're talking to someone in a mask, you can't really portray your expression that well. And it just feels like you're watching YouTube or something.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Um, Do you still kind of dabble in the visual as well, or have you been
Yeah,
focused on?
you mentioned going to New York and doing street photography, and I think that any budding photographer ever on this whole planet who's ever gone to New York starts with street photography because obviously it's so rich, in the visual language there. Um, I still take a lot of photographs. Um, my pro rigs have collected a little dust lately because the newer iPhones cameras they're so good, and I can't remember who said it. Some famous photographer was asked, what's the best camera that I should get? So the best camera is the one you have with.
Mm,
And that really stuck with me. My subjects are limited now to interesting patterns and photographs of my beautiful wife and child. Um, and all the cover art for all the EPs and singles that I've released over the last 3 years um, have used photography that I've taken. So I still love photography. I love color in general. Uh, Color is a kind of a thing in our household, um, and I don't know if you know. I'm gonna forget his name all of a sudden. David Carson.
I don't.
He was, or rather, is a graphic designer of some fame, particularly in the '90s, and he started that that magazine that had all the strange type, not Emigre, but the other one.
Mm,
Um, I could not stand him as a designer. I thought it was not for me. It was showy, etc. Then he put out a book of photographs, and wow, I was floored. It was very much my speed. A
mm,
lot of abstracts, a lot of blurry shots, a
mm,
lot of things having to do with color and texture and composition, and not really a representational approach to things.
mm.
Um, I was floored by that. I learned a lot about that from that experience. Um, so yeah, I still take a lot of photographs. Painters, I've been friends with painters all my life. I think they are the most lovable kooks there are, um, because they all are kooks. You have to have a special thing to be a painter.
Mm.
Um, if I could be anything, I would be that I can't do. It would be a painter. I could never do anything like that. It is
Yeah.
beyond my grasp, and it gains all of my awe when I see painters laying down their layers to become whatever it is they're going to become. And I've had a lot of painter friends, good painter friends, and it requires something that I do not have, and that is enviable and probably also torturous for them.
Yeah. Such as art.
Yeah,
Actually, the third conversation I had was with Ron English, the pop surrealist painter. But
sounds very familiar.
yeah, he's very well known painter, and he makes pop surrealism like
Uh,
these I guess like characters that kind of you know kind of confront our late capitalistic kind of consumption.
mhm,
Like I think he's pretty really famous for like I think he did like a take on like McDonald's and stuff like that.
mhm,
Initially, he was kicking off. I think he's really got fame from his billboard work initially. Like yeah, he was just posting like what looked like ads, but they were just like flipped and kind of make it
Versus.
distorted. Yeah, yeah. Subversive. Yeah, exactly. So um, that was cool. That was in person prior. He was a heady guy, but I asked him about process, and he's like, "Yeah, every day I kind of wake up and paint for 12 hours." I'm like, "Wow, that's I don't. Who knows how much is that actual painting?" But he's in the studio for that long. But kind of getting that vibe. I'm sure
He's in the mindset. He's in the
yeah,
mindset whether he's actually, making strokes or not. He's in the mindset. I
yeah,
think that's very easy to believe. When you love something and it calls you, um, you can devote countless straight hours. As I said, I've spent 14, 16 hours straight on mixes.
mm.
It's probably not the best thing to do. Um, you need to clear your palate for, but yeah, its process I think requires you to be a little obsessive, and I don't think any artist that I've ever known that does not have some form of a little bit of elevated OCD quality um, that's required
Mm.
to generate that kind of energy and sustained effort, which is what it requires. If you do something just a little bit here and there, you don't build momentum. You don't have your happy accidents, which I think are the most amazing things about making art. Is that I fucked that up. Oh, I fucked that really good. That's good.
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't happen unless you're in it and you're doing it and you have sustained effort.
Yeah, it's just a constant. Well, it seems to me like everybody kind of like if I step away for a second and kind of reflect on all my conversations with not just musicians, painters, comedian, anybody, it, they're dedicated to it. You have to dedicate time to it day in day out. It's day in day out. It's your life. You have to create. You have to have that structured time of I'm going to sit down and do art or think, or think about the project and then start a research or something. You have to work towards, you know, that goal daily, or no matter what it is. It
Did
takes
you
that.
have, as a kid, the support um, structure and the discipline and the foresight to know what you wanted to become or what you wanted to be interested in?
No, no.
Neither did I. Neither did I. I think that's a big ingredient right there. Um,
I still
because
don't. I mean, I still don't know where things are going now. I never expected to be here. Like I said, I moved to New York with the intention of maybe just working in design. Tech, more tech
yeah,
design. I never thought it would go this way. It was cool. Like my first image I showed ended up being that year, 2017, in Chelsea in October, which was cool. I was like, oh wow, this is amazing.
congrats, man. That's really awesome. I told myself when I moved to New York in '99, I said I'm not going to leave the city until I've had one photo exhibition,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an actual photo exhibition. That never happened. I've got I've got 55,000 frames, but
Yeah.
that never happened, and I left it there. But that's okay. That's all right.
um yeah, no. It's I but then I did that. It was like a independent art fair called Clio Art Fair, which was on the same uh time frame as like the Armory show and that other bigger art fair. I forget the name. um
This sounds very familiar.
um I think it was just the Armory show I'm thinking of. But it was like it was cool. It was like, whoa, okay, maybe and then I was picking up a lot of work with Paste magazine too. So I'm like, oh, all right, let's just do this. And it's led me here talking to meeting amazing people, and took me up and down the East Coast. But I don't know where things will go, but people really enjoyed this platform too. Because I don't know, I don't try too much. I just have conversations. But
Path is just as interesting as the the finished crossing the finish line, as it were.
yeah,
Um, the path is definitely interesting. Getting to where I've gotten, getting to where you've gotten. Um, I was thinking more just of those kids that somehow know that they're going to be something and decide to start doing it at a very early age. If you start doing something between the ages of 7 and 17 in a real focused, disciplined way, which is rare, but if you start doing that, you are likely to be very successful at what you do. If you have the support and the time to do it, and the discipline and the focus and the knowing, this is what I want, right? I didn't know what I wanted. I mean, I know I wanted to play the drums and I wanted to hang out with girls because they were cute. But I didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
I didn't know what else I was going to do. I wanted to write poetry. I wanted to take pictures, dabbling in a lot of things. But when you have that luxury of forethought and support, I think those are the ones that really, really have the potential to really do something. I remember an artist that I'm not particularly super fond of, Jewel, said one of the most profound things I thought for a person of that age at the time. She said, if you have something to fall back on, you will fall back on it.
True. I think I've certainly heard that line as well. Also, though, like kind of touching on painting again. Jean Michel Basquiat, knew he just knew he's going to be famous. He had just the courage, he just like had the audacity to just walk into a restaurant where Andy Warhol was kind of, eating, and he just walked up to him, and he's like,
Played by David Bowie in the film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I'm referencing. Actually, there we go. The film. Yeah, that's the imagery that just popped up. It was like
I love that
film.
scene.
Yeah.
We were literally, my wife and I were literally just talking about that
Oh,
film.
cool.
And
Yeah.
I was saying, I don't even know it's good anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly what I was envisioning. So yeah, there he goes from the film. But also, though, you did see you the 27 Club, and it's like you don't want to peter out too early, if you're on that track, and then we've seen so many unfortunate cases of them, younger superstar or just extreme talent just peter out due to the press and the pressure of being that well known. And it's like Amy Winehouse, for example. It's unfortunate.
Not everyone is built for it
Yeah.
because artists are sensitive people, and that's one of those ingredients that is required of what you want to, if you want to call it a highly successful artist of any discipline, is that the guardedness that they can use to fend themselves against all this pressure and loss of anonymity. And I remember walking down the street and seeing Bowie and Amon, like around Bergdorf, somewhere around there, and me looking up and recognizing, and he recognized that I recognized him as we were walking, and I wasn't going to say anything, but he didn't know that. And as we walked by, he just went, in a very gentle manner, not in a get away from me kind of way, just like, I thought that was very sweet, and it shows that a person who is very much in control of, after many years of practicing it, very much in control of how people affect him and get to him or don't get to him. Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain, Janis, they did not have that core piece of their personality to defend themselves with. And it is a tragedy. Thankfully, rock and roll is not quite as rife with inexperienced substance abuse as it was in the 60s
Yeah.
and part of the 70s. You know, a lot of that was innocence, accident, and just plain, you know, stupidity.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think that rock and roll really is like that so much anymore. You know,
Yeah.
your
Like,
parents don't have to be worried so much.
oh yeah, it's going backstage, the last couple years, it's like it's pretty boring back there. People, the performers just drinking tea or
Exactly.
steam steaming their
The
larynx.
throat,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
the
So it's
vocal
like,
parts.
oh, I missed it. I should have been around in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like Bob Gruen, like just be back there.
Exactly,
Uh,
exactly.
but still, hey, I'm still shocked that Keith Richards is hanging around somehow. It's like,
I have a very, very, very special place in my heart for Keith and Nick. We have to be careful what kind of world we're leaving behind for Nick
yeah,
and Keith because they're going to outlive all of us.
yeah,
Um,
I don't, I
it
don't know
just doesn't
what.
seem possible. I saw the Stones in 2012, I think,
Hmm,
and I couldn't believe these guys had that energy and agility, and especially Keith. But he was born with a constitution like that. That's one in a million constitution there.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and he's had a lot of fun. I don't know if you read his autobiography, which was super charming. If you haven't
uh,
read that, it's a great read.
hmm,
Um, I always thought that Keith was the scary guy. He's scary to me when I was a little kid. Then I realized what a softy he really is, and what a gentle soul he really is,
yeah,
um, and what a terrible singer he is, and how great that is.
yeah,
That he's such a
yeah,
terrible singer. I love it.
yeah. Uh, yeah, I always like joke around. I'm like, what do they sign? They signed a pact with somebody, like some ominous force to stick around with that energy and
Bringing
just
up another thing we talked about just last night, signing, Robert Johnson and the Deal with the Devil, and Nick Cave's line, and what are they? I can't remember which song. Robert Johnson and the Devil. We don't know who's going to end up cheating who.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, I think there is an element of that, at least metaphorically, when you decide that you're going to practice the guitar 16 hours a day for 5 years to become the best.
yeah,
And that is kind of selling your soul in a way because you are excluding so many aspects of um, life experience, so that you can become this one uh, singular entity or whatever.
yeah. You're right. Like, where you just have to, you neglect everything else besides like music. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna
It's
be.
a choice. It's a choice, but I don't think it's a bad choice.
Hmm,
Um, but it is a little bit like selling a little bit of yourself away, um, to give your life to the instrument or to the canvas or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah. I'm always just impressed with the guy. Like the Stones still kind of, you know, continue. Well, more than recently. Still continuing at it. Same with like Springsteen, still going at it strong.
You
Uh,
feel like
you know,
a brick still.
yeah, yeah. It's insane. um,
Remarkable, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. But
Should we all have that constitution?
we're just on this. We're given what we're given, I guess, right? I don't. It's just luck, just sporadic, universal. Here you go, here you go, or we're just in our own realms, I guess. I don't know.
I spent a lot of time in my 20s. I didn't want to be a Beatle. I wanted to be the Beatles.
Hmm.
And then very quickly realized that it was a lot more important to be famous with your immediate sphere of influence. Be that for 2 degrees of separation, not 150,000 degrees of separation or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's got to start there, and it is very satisfying no matter what. Even if 10 people are listening or watching or whatever it is, if they're if they are responding, then the job is done. Whether or not it's popular or widespread is in some ways kind of irrelevant as far as the judgment of the artist is concerned.
Hmm.
Now, where's the money?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But hey, uh, well, I guess I won't keep you anymore, sir.
Well, it's been a really lovely conversation with you, Rob, and I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Um, it's been a lot of fun.
Same here, sir. And thank you once again for taking your time and enjoy a lovely afternoon down in Atlanta.
Likewise, and be safe up there. Hopefully, this will be semi over soon. So be safe. Good luck.
Same to you, sir. Be well.
Bye.